The final days of Adolf Hitler's life were played out inside the Fuhrerbunker in Berlin. Hitler had decided to stay in Berlin as the city crumbled and his final days were met with rages and a sombre realisation for the Nazi dictator that the war was coming to a crushing loss for Germany. Shortly before Hitler took his own life, and in the final days of his life, he married his longtime companion Eva Braun. Their wedding would take place inside the concrete jungle that was the bunker, and was attended on by very few people. It has been described that their short-lived nuptials are the most depressing in history, with Hitler's marriage to Braun lasting less than 40 hours before they both would be dead. So join us today as we look at the depressing wedding of Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun, and remember to support our channel. Please make sure to subscribe. Hitler began to see more of Eva Braun during the early 1930s, and their relationship began in rather strange circumstances. Following the death of Hitler's half-niece, a woman rumoured to have been the future Führer's lover, Eva Braun herself tried to fight for the affections of the Nazi leader in serious but drastic ways. She shot herself in the chest in August 1932 in what is considered by some historians as a bid for Hitler's affections. Following this, Hitler became more devoted to her and they became lovers, with Braun staying often inside Hitler's Munich apartments. Hitler wished to present himself as a strong and single man, and even a warrior to many women in an attempt to win their affections, votes and devotion across Germany. It was considered that a marriage would weaken his appeal to female voters, and for this he and Braun never appeared in public together. In images they were never viewed closely together in footage also. There was only one published image of them relatively close at the 1936 Winter Olympics, and the German people were actually unaware of their relationship until after the Second World War. But they did cohabit in a sense, with Braun having her own adjoining room to Hitler's at his mountain retreat the Berghof, inside Hitler's Berlin residences, and also inside the Fuhrerbunker. At the time, Braun was seen as not a huge influence on Hitler, but she was never allowed inside the rooms where important political decisions or conferences were held, and she had no gearing on the outcome of the Second World War or the ideas that Hitler carried forward during the conflict. She wasn't even a member of the Nazi Party and was mostly interested in clothes, films and the cinema and sports. One biographer even considered that Braun was not even interested in politics, however the power of Hitler greatly attracted her. She worked with a photographer, and she was often close to the Führer in this capacity, and she took many of the images of Hitler in his inner circle. In particular, she filmed extensively the Berghof and the inner circle, which today offers us a great insight of what life was like at the top of Nazi Germany. However, as the Second World War waged on, things turned drastically against the Germans following Stalingrad on the Eastern Front, and with the successful Normandy invasions on the Western Front. In early April 1945, Hitler had already taken to the Fuhrerbunker, and Eva Braun travelled from Munich to the German capital Berlin to be with Hitler. Along with Hitler, she refused to leave the city when the Red Army encroached, and she must have considered that she would never really see the outside world yet again. There were groups who decided to leave the bunker, however the soon-to-be Hitlers would not. The situation in Berlin was dire for the Germans, and it was certain that the city would be captured and the Third Reich would fall imminently. The soldiers inside the capital were nowhere near skilled enough or of a number enough to cause serious issues for the Soviets, and with this a decision was taken for Hitler and Braun to die inside the bunker. Hitler had also heard of Heinrich Himmler's treachery in attempting to negotiate peace on behalf of the Nazis with the Western Allies, and he also considered working on a surrender treaty. This treachery greatly hurt Hitler, as the man he considered his number two at times crossed him in favour of him attempting to save his own skin. The decision was then made for Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun to marry. Hitler informed Joseph Goebbels about his intention to marry Braun as a reward for her loyalty, and Goebbels then summoned a minister in secret to the bunker to carry out the ceremony. Walter Wagner was the man who presided over the ceremony, and he had been a faithful Nazi Party member and also a lawyer who had experience working with Goebbels in Berlin. He had only just been called up for military service as things were desperate for Germany, and he arrived at the Fuhrerbunker on the 28th of April 1945. When he arrived, Wagner questioned the lack of necessary paperwork needed to carry out legally the wedding, and because of this he was then driven back from the bunker in an armoured car to somewhere possibly a court to obtain the necessary documents. Wagner himself was an ordinary Nazi man who had never met Hitler before, being only known to Goebbels, and he must have been rather shocked to be the man who would oversee the wedding of one of history's most evil men. Wagner himself was shot in the head defending Potsdamer Platz and killed less than 24 hours after he officiated Hitler's wedding, and his body was never found. Inside the map room of the Fuhrerbunker, the ceremony was being prepared. Wagner had located the necessary paperwork, and only a few people attended the very private nuptials. The map room was where Hitler hosted most of the military conferences during the final days of World War II. Sometime around 1 a.m. on April the 29th, 1945, Hitler and Braun emerged hand in hand, arm in arm. Braun wore a black sequined dress and was emotional at the wedding ceremony that had taken place, a brief moment of happiness as Germany crumbled around them and the Soviet guns echoed. Hitler wore his suit as was normal. Joseph Goebbels had been selected as Hitler's best man, and despite sometimes disagreeing during the conflict and throughout history, the two men were very close in their devotion and friendship. Accompanying them were Magda Goebbels and Hitler's private secretary, Martin Bormann, along with a number of other secretaries. In their ceremony under the Nazi laws, they would have both declared that they were of Aryan and pure Aryan blood. As Eva Braun left the room, she pointed to the wedding ring on her finger. As with most weddings, afterwards there was a wedding breakfast. Here they celebrated their new marriage and had a champagne toast. However, Hitler did not drink to his new marriage. Shortly after marrying his long-term girlfriend, he dictated his last will and testament to Secretary Traudl Juncker, preparing his affairs for his imminent death. Despite the ceremony, it was a rather false atmosphere inside the gloomy wedding breakfast, as it was clear what was going to happen shortly after. Gerda Christian, one of Hitler's secretaries, noted how she was invited to the wedding breakfast, however decided to leave the bunker following the wedding. Such was the awkwardness and the atmosphere inside of the Fuhrerbunker. It was clear that the wedding was the last act of two people who were despondent in their situations, and for Hitler, he was now focused on arranging his affairs for his death. One of the first acts of a married man, for example, he did, was poison his dog, testing out the cyanide capsule on his dog Blondie. Less than 40 hours after their marriage had taken place, both Hitler and Eva Braun lay dead inside the Fuhrerbunker after taking their own lives. They said farewell to their staff and the final remnants of the inner circle around 1 p.m. on the 30th of April 1945, and by approximately 3:30 p.m. they were dead with reports of a loud gunshot echoing around the concrete jungle. Braun had bitten down on a cyanide capsule, with Hitler shooting himself in the right temple with his pistol. Their bodies were then disposed of inside the Reich Chancery Garden, being burned as the Red Army continued to shell the area. Within a few days of the wedding, the Hitlers were no more. Neither was the priest who officiated, the best man Joseph Goebbels, witnesses Martin Bormann, and many others inside the bunker who offered their congratulations. So Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun's wedding was incredibly short-lived and took place inside one of the most bizarre and disturbing places of the Second World War. Their hastily arranged ceremony was one of reward for Braun, as it was something she had wanted for a long time. However, their marriage was certainly not long-lasting, and today it remains one of the most depressing, short-lived and infamous weddings in history. Once again, thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.